Prom season was in full swing, and I was thrilled to be the prom king, along with my girlfriend Tina, who would be the prom queen. We spent every waking moment planning our night. The perfect dinner, the ideal playlist, and the dream dress that would make her shine like a star. One afternoon, as we were putting the final touches on our plans, we decided to explore the school's old costume closet. Before stepping into the dimly lit room, we exchanged glances, a mix of enthusiasm and trepidation. Inside, it was a treasure trove of forgotten garments and accessories. As we rummaged through racks of costumes, I felt a bad sensation but forgot it in the thrill of discovery. Then I saw it, a striking prom dress hanging in the far corner. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen, a deep crimson color that seemed to shimmer and sway even without a breeze. The fabric looked luxurious, but there was something unsettling about it, something almost alive. I glanced at Tina, and her eyes sparkled with intrigue, rapidly drawn to the dress. Maybe we shouldn't touch it, I cautioned, my instinct flaring. She dismissed my concerns with a wave of her hand, getting closer to inspect it. "Look at how beautiful it is, Ryan. It's perfect for prom. I have to try it on." Reluctantly, I followed her to the dress. As she reached out to touch the fabric, a chill took over, as if the temperature dropped several degrees. I hesitated, but Tina's enthusiasm was contagious. How could I deny her this moment? She lifted the dress from its hanger, and an odd whisper seemed to flutter through the room, barely audible but undeniably there. As Tina slipped into it, she gasped with excitement. But when admiring herself in the cracked mirror, the reflection seemed off. I leaned closer, and for a split second, I thought I saw a shadow dart behind her, a fleeting glimpse of something sinister. I blinked, and it was gone. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, my voice laced with worry. "What if there's something wrong with it?" She laughed. "You're being silly. It's a gorgeous dress. I'm going to wear it to prom, and everyone will be so jealous." With a resigned sigh, I nodded, trying to embrace her certainty. But a dark premonition lingered. After finding the dress, the days leading up to prom felt like a fever dream, exciting yet strange. I could hardly get Tina to talk about anything else. Every time I saw her, she was scrolling through prom ideas, her phone full of makeup pictures and hairstyles. But underneath her enthusiasm lay something darker, a flicker of obsession that gnawed at me. The moment she wore the dress for the first time at home, I noticed a shift. It was as if the fabric had wrapped itself around not just her body, but her very essence. She started experiencing bizarre occurrences, like whispered voices in the hallways and recurring nightmares. "I keep dreaming about the dress, Ryan," she confessed. "I'm at the prom, but everything feels wrong. I can hear someone calling my name, but I can't see who it is. It's like they're pulling me in." I tried to soothe her. "It's just nerves, Tina. Let's just focus on having a good time." But that didn't seem to help. Over the next few days, she grew more distant, her laughter fading into silence, replaced by moments of blank staring. One evening, I caught her talking to herself in the mirror, her expression shifting from joy to anguish and back again, as if she were wrestling with unseen forces. "Are you okay? You've been acting strange," I said, breaking her trance. She turned to me, a vague recognition in her eyes, but it quickly faded. "I'm fine, Ryan, just thinking about the dress." That cursed garment had turned from a symbol of joy into a shadow that loomed over us. On the prom night, the atmosphere was tense. I could feel something unnatural pressing down on us, suffocating the joy we were supposed to feel. As we entered the school gymnasium, Tina, radiant in the dress, stole the spotlight. The lights dimmed and the music pulsed through the room. She twirled and danced, captivating everyone. But the dress seemed to draw energy from the crowd, and I felt the unease return, more powerful than ever. "Are you okay?" Tina asked, her voice sweet, yet laced with something sinister. "Yeah, just feeling a little off," I admitted. But the truth was, the deeper I looked into her eyes, the more I felt the distance growing between us. With every laugh, every twirl, I felt her slipping away from me. As if she were caught between two worlds, one filled with joy and the other shrouded in shadows. "Tina," I shouted over the music, forcing my way through the crowd. "We need to talk." She turned to me, her expression blissful yet vacant. Ryan, it's perfect. The night, the dress, it is special. It wants us to be together forever. I shook my head. No, it's not perfect. You have to listen to me. You are becoming someone other than yourself. I glanced around, searching for help, but the other students were entranced, swaying to the music, completely unaware of the chaos brewing beneath the surface. Just then, a surreal vision took over, and I saw shadows creeping along the walls, curling and coiling like serpents. I turned to Tina, but her gaze was fixated on something behind me, her expression twisting into one of terror. "Look out!" she screamed. I spun around just in time to see a dark figure emerging from the shadows, a faint outline of a woman dressed in a gown that mirrored Tina's. The spirit of the dress had come to claim what was hers. "We have to get out of here," I shouted. Students were now desperate, scrambling for the exits as the spirit's presence grew stronger, manifesting shadows that flickered and danced around us, whispering promises of eternal beauty and love. But Tina stood frozen, entranced by the apparition. "She's beautiful. She wants me to join her." The scary voice resonated through the gym, echoing like a distant whisper carried on the wind. "You are mine, child, forever trapped in the beauty of this dress. Come to me, and you shall never be alone again." "Tina," I cried, reaching for her hand. "You have to fight it. Remember us. Remember our dreams." For a moment, I saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, a battle raging within her. Tina snapped back to reality, a spark igniting in her eyes. "Ryan, I'm still here!" With a strength I didn't know I possessed, I pulled her closer, our bodies colliding with a force that broke the spirit's grip momentarily. "Let's get out!" I shouted. Together, we fought our way through the crowd, dodging shadows that lashed out like tendrils, trying to drag us back. The cries of students echoed in the background. As we neared the exit, the creature unleashed a wail that resonated through the gym, shaking the very walls. "You cannot escape! You belong to me!" The creature wrapped around Tina. She gasped, fear flooding her eyes. "It's like she's inside my head." I reached out, desperately trying to break the connection, but the spirit was relentless. "Join me. Embrace the beauty of eternity." With one final, heart-wrenching glance, Tina was enveloped by its shadow, and in an instant she was gone. The gym fell silent. I stood there, paralyzed by grief, feeling as if the very ground beneath me had shattered. I had lost her, and the weight of that reality crashed down like a tidal wave. In the days that followed, the world felt hollow. I wandered the empty halls of the school, each corner a reminder of the laughter we had shared, the moments we had planned. But now, those memories were ghosts. With every passing day, I became a shadow of my former self, wandering the school as if searching for something that would never return. The halls whispered secrets, and I listened, hoping to catch a glimpse of her soul among the shadows. But the only response was the silence, heavy and oppressive, echoing the truth I now knew. She was gone, taken by the darkness, and I was left to wander forever in the wake of her memory.
The four of us frequently gathered at Jennifer's house for movie nights, a tradition that had become a comfort amidst the chaos of our senior year. But that night was different. A palpable pressure hung in the air, especially when Jennifer brought up the anniversary of the school field trip that had ended in tragedy, a day that still haunted our school. A shiver ran down my spine as I recalled the conversations in the hallways about the students who had drowned in the lake during that fateful trip. Every year since, on that exact date, one student had mysteriously gone missing. "Do you guys remember what happened?" Jennifer asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. I was too young to understand, but it's like no one talks about it anymore. Barbara rolled her eyes, leaning back against the couch. "Come on, Jen. It's just a bunch of stories to scare freshmen. There's no way that's real." Lucy leaned forward, her interest piqued. "Actually, it's more than just stories. The field trip was supposed to be a fun day out, but a storm rolled in, and the bus had to turn back. They ended up at the lake instead. A few kids drowned trying to swim to the shore when the boat capsized. It's all in the old records. Sasha, usually quiet and reserved, chimed in. My older sister said they saw something in the water that day, something that didn't belong. She swears it was a figure, but everyone thought she was just imagining it. A silence enveloped us as we absorbed her words. The crackle of the popcorn seemed louder, almost mocking in the stillness. What if there's more to it? Jennifer suggested, her excitement tinged with apprehension. What if we dug into it? We could look at old records, maybe even interview people who were there. Are you serious? Barbara scoffed, but there was an edge of uncertainty in her tone. You want to dig up old ghosts? Why not? It's not like we have anything to lose, Jennifer replied, her determination shining through. The idea lingered in the air, and I could see the interest in everyone's eyes, including Barbara's, despite her protests. Okay, fine, she finally conceded. But if we do this, we need to be careful and not be caught. That night, as we left Jennifer's house, the crisp autumn air nipped at our skin. The full moon cast an unsettling glow on the quiet streets, illuminating the path ahead. It felt like something was watching us from the shadows. The legend of the drowned students was resurfacing, and with it, the whispers of a curse that had loomed over Lashbrook High for far too long. The next day, we gathered in the library. Lucy led the charge, combing through yearbooks and forgotten records. With each passing hour, we pieced together the tragic story. The following days were a whirlwind of research and discovery. As we sifted through the papers, we stumbled upon an old article buried in the back of a volume. It detailed the field trip and the storm that had struck unexpectedly, but it was the last few lines that caught our attention. Witnesses reported strange occurrences during the event. A figure was seen moving through the fog, and many believe it was a sign of something sinister at play. Barbara frowned. A figure? That sounds like classic ghost story material. It doesn't mean anything. But Lucy was undeterred. What if it does? This isn't just about the drowned students. It's about what happened that day. We need to know more. That weekend, we decided to visit the lake where it all happened. The sun was shining, a stark contrast to the heavy feelings we carried. We stood at the water's edge, the surface smooth as glass, reflecting the blue sky above. Lucy began snapping photos while Jennifer documented our findings in a notebook. Barbara remained skeptical, her arms crossed, and Sasha lingered a few steps back, clearly uncomfortable. Let's check out the old boathouse, Lucy suggested, pointing to a dilapidated structure at the far side of the lake. It might hold some clues. As we made our way over, shadows danced between the trees, and the rustling leaves seemed to whisper secrets. I looked back at Sasha, whose eyes were wide with apprehension, but she pressed on, motivated by curiosity. Inside, rottings lined the walls and cobwebs hung like curtains. We rummaged through the debris, uncovering forgotten life jackets, faded maps, and fragments of the past. It was then that Lucy found something strange. An old journal tucked beneath a broken floorboard. Its cover was cracked and weathered, but inside were frantic entries detailing the last moments of a student who had been on that fateful trip. Listen to this, Lucy read aloud, her voice trembling. We saw something in the water, something that wasn't human. It was watching us, and then the storm hit. Jennifer leaned closer. What if that's why the students drowned? What if they were trying to escape from whatever was out there? We decided to head back to the school, intent on digging deeper into the journal's author and their connection to the others who had disappeared. But as we stepped outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows around us. Just then, a sharp gust of wind swept through the trees, causing them to sway ominously. I glanced back at the lake, now dark and foreboding, and the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. It felt as if the water was whispering, beckoning. Days passed, and the night of the anniversary arrived with an unsettling stillness that blanketed Lashbrook. We gathered at Jennifer's house. The shadows outside danced, reminding me of the whispers we had uncovered about the lake. We're doing this for them, Jennifer said, her determination shining through. We all nodded, but I could see doubt in Sasha's eyes. We were shaken. It all felt too real, too close. Jennifer drove, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. We need to find out who the one is, the one who knows. Someone must have seen what happened that day. Sasha sat in the back. But what if we're wrong? What if we make things worse? Lucy, clutching the journal tightly in her lap, looked at Jennifer. The spirit was clear. If we don't do something, another student could go missing. As we reached Jennifer's house, we spread out the records we had collected, each name a thread in a web of tragedy. Let's focus on the adults who were involved. Teachers, chaperones, anyone who might have known what really happened, Lucy suggested, flipping through the pages with urgency. Mrs. Caldwell, Jennifer said suddenly, her eyes brightening. She was the only teacher who went on that trip and was one of the last to see the students before everything went wrong. She's still at school. Barbara hesitated. But Mrs. Caldwell is different. She never talks about it. She avoids the subject like the plague. Do we really want to bring this up with her? We have to, Jennifer insisted. If there's a chance she knows something, we can't ignore it. The spirit made it clear someone has to answer for this. We decided to meet Mrs. Caldwell the next morning at school. The memories of the previous night weighed heavily on us, each shadow a reminder of the stakes involved. When we finally found her in the faculty lounge, she was pouring herself a cup of coffee. She looked up as we entered, her eyes narrowing slightly. What can I help you with? Jennifer stepped forward, swallowing hard. We wanted to ask you about the field trip to the lake, the one that ended in tragedy. A glimmer of pain crossed her face, quickly masked by a practiced neutrality. That's not a subject I discuss lightly. We think there's more to the story, Lucy added. We believe there's a curse tied to the events, and we need to know what really happened. Mrs. Caldwell's posture stiffened. You shouldn't dig into things better left buried, she finally said, her voice low. The past has a way of haunting those who refuse to forget. Someone could go missing again, I interjected. We've already lost students every year on this anniversary. We need to stop it. Her gaze shifted to the window. I had a responsibility to protect those children, and I failed, she confessed. But exposing the truth might just make things worse. We pressed her. What happened that day? Jennifer demanded, her voice firm. With a sigh, Mrs. Caldwell relented. We were unprepared for the storm. I told them to stay close, but they panicked when the boat overturned. They were lost to the lake, and it was my fault for not being vigilant enough. There was something in the water, something dark. I saw it. I should have warned them. What did you see? Barbara asked, leaning in closer. There was a figure, a shadow. It seemed to rise from the depths as the storm intensified, drawing them in. I could hear their screams as they vanished beneath the waves. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. Why didn't you say anything before? Lucy asked, confusion and frustration mixing in her tone. Because I thought I could protect them by staying silent. But it didn't work. The more I tried to forget, the worse it got. I thought if I didn't talk about it, the curse would fade. Mrs. Caldwell had carried this burden alone, believing silence would shield others from the pain. But in doing so, she had unknowingly fed the curse, allowing it to thrive. That evening, we met again at Jennifer's house, our faces pale with the weight of our task. We could go back to the lake and make an offering, Sasha suggested quietly, something that honors the lost kids. Like what? Barbara asked, still skeptical but beginning to see the urgency. A symbol of remembrance, Lucy said thoughtfully. A tribute that acknowledges their pain. Perhaps flowers, candles, something personal to each of us. We gathered supplies, each of us selecting items that held meaning, as we prepared to head back to the lake. The moon was full as we approached the water. With trembling hands, we placed our offerings at the water's edge, each item a testament to our commitment to honor the lost souls. Please, we honor you, Jennifer spoke softly, her voice steady. We acknowledge your pain and we want to set you free. We hope this will ease your suffering. A deep rumble resonated beneath the surface. The spirit appeared, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you, her voice intertwining with the sound of the wind. But one must pay the price. We felt a shift in the air. The sacrifice was not merely a gesture. It demanded a deeper commitment. We stood frozen, caught between fear and the undeniable urge to protect those we loved. Who will pay the price? She hovered before us, the sorrowful gaze fixed on each of us in turn. This was it, the moment when we would face our deepest regrets, and it was clear that the burden of sacrifice weighed heavier than any of us had imagined. "I'll do it," Jennifer said suddenly, her voice steady, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "I've always been the leader. It makes sense that I should take responsibility for this." "No," I protested, stepping forward. "You can't!" We all agreed this had to be a collective decision. We need to stand together. "Maybe that's the point," Barbara chimed in, her skepticism softening. "Maybe the sacrifice is about facing our guilt together. What if we each have to reveal our regrets? That's what binds us to this moment." The spirit watched us with intensity, and in that moment, I realized it wasn't just about one person stepping forward. It was about all of us confronting the truths we had buried deep within ourselves. "I should have warned them," Jennifer started, tears brimming in her eyes. "I was too focused on being in charge. I didn't see the signs of trouble. I let them down." "I was supposed to keep everyone together," Sasha realized, "but I always froze when it mattered most. I let fear take over, and I should have fought harder to protect my friends." Barbara glanced at each of us, her brow furrowed in thought. "I've always been skeptical, but that just meant I doubted all of you when you needed me most. I didn't want to believe there was something dark at play. I should have trusted my gut and stood with you." Lucy took a deep breath. "I thought studying the past would keep me safe, but it didn't prepare me for the pain of knowing what really happened. I let my fascination blind me to the truth. I should have spoken up sooner." As the confessions poured out, the wind picked up around us. The spirit listened intently, her expression changing from sorrow to something softer, relief perhaps. Finally, I stepped forward. "I always thought if I ignored the truth, it wouldn't hurt me. I didn't realize that by staying silent, I was letting the fear win. I let my friends down by not being honest about my own fears." "Your honesty is the sacrifice I sought," she said, her voice now a gentle breeze. "In facing your regrets, you honor those lost. This is the path to freedom." As she began to dissolve, I felt an overwhelming peace. We had done it. We had freed her. With the spirit finally at peace, we turned to leave the lake. The world felt different somehow, sharper, more vivid, but also clouded by the guilt that clung to us like a second skin. As we walked away, the distance between us felt palpable. There was an unspoken understanding that our lives had irrevocably changed. "Will we ever be the same again?" Sasha murmured, looking back at the lake, now a dark expanse in the distance. "No," I admitted. "We've seen things we can't unsee. We've lost pieces of ourselves tonight." And as we walked away, burdened by guilt and the realization of fractured friendship, I knew we would carry this night with us for the rest of our lives.
The cold light sputtered above, crackling like an angry hive of wasps as I settled into the plastic chair of the detention room. Halloween night had never felt so dreary. While other students were out trick-or-treating or attending festive parties, we were stuck here. Consequences for our petty infractions. I sighed and looked around at my companions, each of us trapped in our own web of annoyance. To my left sat Olivia, her long hair pulled back into a tight bun, clearly agitated by the circumstances. "This is so unfair," she said, looking at the clock as if it were responsible for our punishment. On my right was Liam, attempting to lighten the mood by twirling a pencil and throwing exaggerated expressions of boredom. I leaned back in my chair. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. "Do you ever get the feeling we're being watched?" I asked, with an uncomfortable feeling settling in my bones. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "You mean by the ghost of bad decisions?" "No, I mean really watched," I insisted, my heart racing slightly. "Something feels off tonight." Just then, the heavy wooden door at the back of the room suddenly opened. "Did you guys see that? The door, it just moved." I pointed. Olivia leaned forward, her brow furrowing in concern. It's probably just the wind. Or something worse, Liam replied, the words slipping out. Before I could say more, a low, echoing sound filled the room, a mournful wail that seeped through the walls. It sounds like it's coming from the door. We can't just sit here, I said. We should check it out. No way, Olivia shot back, shaking her head. What if it's dangerous? The room fell silent as we exchanged glances. The wail echoed again, a chilling reminder that we were not alone in this room. Liam, if you're going to go, you better be careful, Olivia warned, her eyes wide with fear. I will, he promised, but I could see the doubt in his expression. The corners of the room seemed to pulse, becoming a dark mass waiting to swallow me whole. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and peered into the pitch blackness beyond. As I stood there, I felt a sensation, a supernatural presence. Liam, come back, Olivia called out. The moment I took a step inside, the lights returned, revealing Liam not just at the threshold, but something else looming behind him, a shadowy figure that sent a jolt of terror through me. As I stood frozen in place, the shadow crept closer, signaling the beginning of a night filled with horrors we could never have anticipated. The clock continued to tick, but now it felt like a countdown to something sinister. Liam didn't move. Instead, he stared into the darkened room as if transfixed by some unseen force. I glanced at Olivia, and I knew we couldn't just leave him there. Finally, he blinked, breaking whatever spell had gripped him. He stepped back, stumbling into the room. That was strange, he said. I swear I saw something in there. Like a figure, I don't know. Then, without warning, a loud bang reverberated from the back of the room, causing us all to jump. Okay, that's it, Olivia exclaimed. I'm getting out of here. Wait, I grabbed her arm. What if it's dangerous out there? We don't know what's happening. But before we could argue further, the door swung shut with a deafening slam. Liam rushed to try the handle, but it wouldn't budge. We were trapped. Great, just great, Olivia muttered, her voice rising in pitch. We're going to die in detention. Calm down, I urged, trying to keep my composure. We need to figure out what's going on first. Just then, the temperature in the room plummeted, and a soft whisper floated through the air, barely audible but unmistakable. Liam's face went pale. Did you hear that? Yeah, I whispered back, my throat dry. It sounded like it came from over there. We turned to the back corner of the room. The lights cast mysterious shapes against the walls. Maybe it's the ghost, Liam suggested. Ghost? Olivia echoed incredulously. That's ridiculous. Who are you? I called out, despite the fear coursing through me. What do you want? Silence enveloped us again. Just when I thought we might not get an answer, foggy images materialized in the air, a scene from long ago, unfolding like a movie. We watched, entranced, as the specter of an agonizing woman appeared. Miss Hargrove, I breathed. She had been our history teacher, beloved by many, but she had vanished mysteriously the previous year. No one ever discovered the truth. Help me. Her voice vibrated through the classroom, filled with a haunting sorrow. I was wronged. What happened to you? I asked, compelled by her presence. We saw glimpses of her life, laughter in the classroom, then a sudden confrontation with an indistinct figure, an argument, and then darkness. The images blurred, and the room began to shake. I never wanted this, she cried, her form wavering. I was trying to protect them. But as she spoke, the shadows around her thickened, morphing into darker shapes. You must know the truth, she said, her voice fading, desperation etched into her spectral features. The scene shifted once more, and we saw a group of students, our classmates, gathering in the detention room, their faces pale and panicked. Miss Hargrove had tried to protect us from something, and whatever had happened that night had sealed her fate. Why can't you move on? I asked, my heart aching for the spirit before us. I was betrayed, she said. They took everything from me. You must uncover the truth, or you will be trapped like me. We found ourselves back in the classroom, shaken and confused. As we huddled together, the darkness around us felt both threatening and strangely protected. With a newfound sense of urgency, we gathered around an old, battered desk. The clock ticked ominously, each second a reminder of the time slipping away from us. We had to unravel the mystery of Miss Hargrove's death if we wanted to escape this nightmarish detention. What do we know? I asked, looking at Olivia and Liam. What have we heard about her disappearance? Liam ran a hand through his hair, his expression turning serious. I remember the rumors. They said she had a breakdown before she vanished. Something about a student, a confrontation that went too far. Right, Olivia chimed in. And didn't she always seem different, like she was hiding something? I thought it was just her passion for history, but now I wonder if there was more. I nodded, piecing together the fragments of our memories. We need to find out who that student was. Maybe they know something. Maybe they were involved. Liam shifted uncomfortably. But where do we start? It's not like we can just ask around. Everyone's too scared to talk about her. Before I could respond, the lights flickered, drawing our attention to the dark corners of the room. A faint whisper echoed, "Find the key." Olivia repeated, "Find the key? What does that mean?" "Maybe it's a literal key," I suggested. "Or maybe it's something we need to unlock, like a memory or a secret." As we searched the desk, Olivia rummaged through papers and old assignments, while Liam pulled open drawers filled with forgotten items. My eyes were drawn to the shelves lined with history textbooks and faded memorabilia. One book in particular caught my attention, a big, leather-bound volume labeled History of Our School. "Hey, check this out," I called to the others. "Is it any good?" Liam asked, leaning over my shoulder. "Let's see," I replied, flipping through the pages. The book was filled with photographs, newspaper clippings, and accounts of significant events at our school. Then I spotted something, a black and white photo of Miss Hargrove standing proudly next to a group of students from years past. This was taken just a few months before she disappeared, and I paused, squinting at the people in the photo. "That student there, she looks familiar. Isn't that?" Liam began, but I was already flipping through the pages, searching for the name. "There," I exclaimed, finding the caption underneath the photo. "It's Jessica Miller. She was in our class last year, and she was one of the last people to see Miss Hargrove." "Jessica," Olivia mused. "I remember her. She was quiet, but there was something off about her. She stopped coming to school after Miss Hargrove disappeared." "Exactly," I said. "If we can find her, maybe she can shed some light on what really happened." "Where would Jessica be?" Liam thought for a moment, his face scrunched in concentration. "She used to hang out at the old library on Elm Street. We might be able to catch her there." With no time to waste, we made our way to the door, but it wouldn't budge. "We have to unlock the truth," I whispered. "Try the windows," Liam suggested, rushing to the nearest one. We all joined him, frantically trying to push them open, but they were sealed tight. "Wait, what if the key isn't physical?" Olivia said, her eyes narrowing. "We know Miss Hargrove cared about her students. Maybe if we think hard enough about what happened, we can remember more." After a moment thinking about the visions we saw, I remembered. There was one day. She was really upset about a student failing her class. She mentioned wanting to help, but it was like she was fighting against something bigger, like pressure from the administration, maybe, or from parents, I questioned. "It's like she knew something terrible was about to happen." "Right," Liam said, taking a deep breath. "I remember a day when she got really angry during class. Someone made a joke about history being boring, and she snapped. She told us how important it was to learn from the past, and she seemed really scared, almost like she was warning us." The memories began to flood back. "There was a school board meeting the week before she disappeared," I added. "I overheard her arguing with someone about funding for the history program. They were threatening to cut it if she didn't comply with their demands." "And what if that's what drove her to confront whoever was behind it?" Olivia said. "Yes, that's why she ended up in detention that night," I concluded, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "She was trying to expose something, and it cost her everything. We need to confront that," Olivia said with determination. At that moment, gently, the front door opened, revealing a faint glow. It was an invitation, a sign that we could finally leave this place behind. As we stepped outside, an eerie chill washed over us, but there was no turning back. We have to hurry, Olivia urged. If Jessica is still there, we can't let her slip away. We ran through the hallways, waiting for something to happen. As we approached the library, shadows danced along the walls, and I could swear I heard faint whispers beckoning us closer. Guys, wait, I said. What if she's not alone? What if whoever hurt Miss Hargrove is still looking for her? Liam looked over his shoulder, his face pale. We don't have much choice. We have to risk it. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the heavy wooden doors. The library looked abandoned, dirty and broken furniture, books spread on the floor. Jessica? Olivia called. Are you here? For a moment, there was only silence, punctuated by the rustle of pages turning. Slowly, a figure emerged. It was Jessica, her eyes wide with shock and fear. What are you kids doing here? She demanded, backing away slightly. We need to talk, I said. About Miss Hargrove. We think you know what happened to her. Jessica's face paled and she shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. No, you don't understand. It's too dangerous. You have to leave. Please, Jessica, I pleaded. We're running out of time. We have to know the truth. What happened that night? She hesitated, glancing nervously toward the shadows that lurked at the edges of the library. It was all my fault. Her voice was trembling. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Jessica began to recount the events of that fateful night. Miss Hargrove found out about the plans the school board was making to cut the history program. They were going to replace it with some corporate-sponsored program that would dumb down everything we learned. She was furious and confronted them. She confronted me, Jessica explained. I was the one who had convinced her to take a stand. I thought it was the right thing to do, but it spiraled out of control. What do you mean? Olivia pressed. What happened next? Jessica looked down, guilt etched across her face. The school board members, they didn't want anyone to find out. They warned Miss Hargrove to back off. When she didn't, they made their move. That night, she was in detention, trying to gather evidence against them. I was supposed to meet her there, but I got scared and never showed up. She cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was terrified. I thought they would come after me too. I didn't know what they were capable of. The weight of her confession fell heavy in the air. What happened next? I urged. They found her in that room, Jessica's voice barely audible. They told her to keep quiet, but she wouldn't back down. I could hear her screaming, begging them to stop. I wanted to help, but I was frozen in fear. We need to do something, Olivia said urgently. We can't let her be forgotten. We have to expose the truth. But how? Liam exclaimed. The school board is powerful. They'll stop us. Maybe we can gather evidence, I suggested. There must be something here that can help us. Old records, documents, anything. Jessica nodded, her fear turning to determination. There's a filing cabinet in the back. It might contain records from that night, but you have to be quick. We dashed to the back of the library and found the filing cabinet, old and dusty, but still intact. I yanked it open, rummaging through stacks of papers, hoping to find anything that could help us. Here, Olivia exclaimed, pulling out a manila envelope. This looks like it might contain meeting minutes from the board. I opened the envelope, scanning the documents inside. We found references to the changes they were making, plans to cut vital programs and replace them with corporate sponsorships. There were even mentions of threats directed at Miss Hargrove. That's it! We need to go! Liam shouted. Now! We grabbed the documents and bolted for the door, racing through the library. The door slammed shut behind us, sealing whatever force that was inside. We did it! We have evidences! Olivia gasped. But we have to get it to someone who can help, I said urgently. We need to expose the truth before they can stop us. Where do we go? Liam panted. The news station, I replied. We can take the evidence straight there. They'll have to listen to us. Olivia nodded, determination shining in her eyes. We took off down the hall and burst through the corridors, leaving the school behind. We hopped into Liam's car, driving fast through the deserted streets. As we reached the news station, we explained everything to the night receptionist. To our relief, she took us seriously and ushered us into the room where reporters were wrapping up for the night. Minutes later, we stood before a reporter, the documents spread out on the table. As we told our experience, their expressions shifted from skepticism to shock. "We'll get this story out," the reporter promised, "but you need to understand, there are powerful people involved. They won't take this lightly." As we left the station, the weight of our actions were all over. We had exposed a dark secret, but at what cost? Weeks passed, and the news broke through the community. Protests erupted against the school board, demanding accountability. But with every step forward, it felt like the shadows returned, creeping into our lives. The students started to witness strange and supernatural occurrences. Was it her? The question remained, had we truly freed her soul? Or was she still trapped within these walls and forever haunting through the halls of our school?
It was a regular Friday afternoon. My friend and I were lounging in our usual spot, the old bleachers behind the school, when it all began. He was the first to notice it. A folded piece of paper wavered in the wind, caught between two rotting boards. He picked it up, a grin stretching across his face, and smoothed the paper out, revealing jagged handwriting that seemed to dance on the page. "You're invited to a secret party this Saturday night. Meet at the old house in the woods at midnight. Come alone, if you dare." It made me giggle nervously, but I actually felt goosebumps. The mentioned house had a reputation, rumors of strange events and tales of kids who'd gone missing around it. "Sounds like a bad idea," I said, trying to inject some reason into our bubbling conviction. But my friend ignored it. "Come on. It'll be fun. Besides, I heard the house is haunted." What better place for a party? Before I could protest, I imagined the idea of being part of something thrilling, something forbidden. It was intoxicating, so I accepted. That night, the invitation sat on my desk, its edges slightly crumpled, the words haunting me. I tossed and turned, the thought of that old house looming larger in my mind. What if it was just a prank? What if we walked into something we couldn't escape? But as the sun dipped below the horizon the next day, I found myself packing my bag, heart racing. Maybe it was just a party. Maybe the stories were just that, stories. We entered my friend's car, the laughter ringing out as we sped toward the house in the woods, the night swallowing us whole. "Is it just me, or does this place look like something out of a horror movie?" I said, over the sound of rustling leaves. "It's just an old house," he replied, trying to sound brave. He led the way, the thrill of adventure now mixed with a gnawing anxiety. Inside, the house was dimly lit, candles casting shadows that danced along the walls. Strange symbols adorned the faded wallpaper, and all we could hear was a distant echo of talking and laughter that reverberated through the halls. We wandered into a large room adorned with mismatched furniture, the remnants of a once grand living space now swallowed by dust and neglect. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting a light that barely illuminated the faces of those gathered around it. I felt a twinge of fear, a primal instinct urging me to turn back. "Look at this place," my friend said, his voice full of bravado. "It's amazing." He stepped closer to the fire, mesmerized by the flames dancing in the dark. The warmth felt good, but there was something disquieting about the intensity of the heat. I hung back, my instincts were screaming at me. The guests were dressed with a very specific color palette. Some people were wearing almost the same clothes. It felt wrong, like we were intruding on something sacred. "Come on, don't just stand there," a young man called me, beckoning me with an enthusiastic wave. I took a hesitant step forward, feeling the stranger's eyes on me. A loud crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the house, causing everyone to pause. The laughter faded. "Did you hear that?" I murmured at my friend. "Yeah, but it's probably just the wind or something," he said. "Let's explore a bit." Against my better judgment, I followed him deeper into the house. We wandered down a narrow hallway lined with portraits, the faces staring down at us with lifeless eyes. Then we encountered a huge door, completely different from the others. He pushed the door open, revealing a circular room full of masked figures. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. "Look at all this!" My friend seemed oblivious. "This is so cool." He began to wander further into the room, inspecting an altar adorned with candles that burned with a strangely blue flame. "Hey, check this out," my friend called, holding up a mask from a nearby table, its features grotesque. The others gathered around him, laughing nervously as he donned it. He grabbed another mask and pushed it over my face, also laughing. "Let's get this party started." As the last echoes of his laughter faded, a sudden hush fell over the room. The masked figures turned their attention toward us, as if we were the main course at a feast. I felt the blood drain from my face, a recognition that we were not welcome. "Let's get out of here," I shouted. The group was crowding more and more, to the point where I couldn't see my friend anymore. Just then, a masked figure emerged and gestured to the altar. A ripple of elation ran through the crowd. They gathered around him, as if expecting a speech. "Good evening," started the leader. "Tonight, we celebrate transformation, a communion of body and soul." The masked figures began to sway as he continued speaking, their bodies moving in a synchronized rhythm that felt both hypnotic and terrifying. I could see their eyes glinting with hunger. I yelled at the crowd, trying to find my friend, but I couldn't see him anywhere, which terrified me even more. After a round of applause, the leader raised a dagger high, the blue flames reflecting off its blade. "Let the ceremony commence." In that instant, everything changed. The room shifted, and people began to morph, their masks falling away to reveal familiar faces. Classmates, colleagues I'd known all my life, their eyes wild and fevered with zeal. I stumbled back, horror dawning in my mind. The masked leader stepped back, revealing his face, and I gasped in disbelief. It was him, my friend, now transformed into something unrecognizable. "Welcome to the family," he said, his smile chillingly wide. "You're just in time for our rebirth." I felt a cold wave of rage. "How could you?" I shouted. "Open your eyes," he replied, his voice steady, almost soothing. "We've found something greater than ourselves. You were invited to join us, to be part of this awakening. Together we shall ascend to a higher existence and enlightenment." A bitter laugh escaping my lips. "This isn't enlightenment. It's madness." "Madness," he echoed. "Madness is the refusal to see the truth, and you will regret refusing to understand the true meaning of sacrifice." The chanting shifted into a frenzied crescendo, and the crowd moved closer, their intentions shifting from welcoming to predatory. I could see their eyes now, wide and maniac, as if they were caught in a trance that promised something beyond this world. I could hardly breathe as I sought an exit. When I finally reached the shuttered door, I pushed desperately, and it finally burst open, sending me tumbling into the hallway beyond. I didn't even look back as I ran. When I got inside the car, I still could feel the lingering presence of that cult. I had unwittingly crossed into a world that I never imagined existed. I took a moment before driving into the night, understanding that these memories would now accompany me. Shadows in my rearview mirror.